Let me know when you're live streaming again.
Stream is now live.
All right, so thank you, and welcome to our virtual viewers as well. I've got a few motions from the closed session that I would read and seek approval for. The first one is, be it resolved that the Board of Directors authorize the Chief Executive Officer to implement a 2.5% in-year salary adjustment for eligible TSHC management and non-union staff effective June the 1st, 2022. That is aligned with a 2.5% increase that was recently implemented by the City of Toronto and the Toronto Community Housing Corporation, TSHC, ensuring that the adjustment is funded from the existing operating budget and does not impact service delivery to tenants. Secondly, authorize the Chief Executive Officer to amend the annual personal float day policy to increase the allocation from 2 days to 4 days, effective June the 1st, 2022. Number 3, authorize the Chief Executive Officer to collaborate with TSHC in a parallel review of management and non-union compensation and benefits using the same consultant that is undertaking the City of Toronto's review in order to leverage the analysis and minimize the duplication of effort and minimize the time and cost of such a review for TSHC. Number 4, direct the CEO to review and report back with recommendations to update the management and non-union compensation program, including salary range structure, pay for performance program, group benefits, and other policy entitlements to ensure TSHC's ability to attract and retain talent in order to deliver on the mandate. Can I get a mover and a seconder?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim. All in favor? That's approved. Moving on to strategic planning, may I ask someone to move the following? Be it resolved that a report on strategic planning will receive for information by the board. Number 2, further that the matter be referred to the Deputy City Manager, the TSHC Board Chair, the TSHC QTE Committee Chair, and the TSHC CEO to bring forward a recommendation for further discussion by the board and an approach to strategic planning which address budget considerations.
So moved. It's Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Seconded, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. All in favor? That's approved. Thank you very much. We'll now move to item number 13. And at this stage, I'd like to welcome Kathy Berth, Chair of the Responsible Personal Accessibility in Toronto Housing, also known as RPATH Committee. RPATH is a tenant-led committee of tenants with physical disabilities who advocate for accessibility. This includes advocating for tenants in buildings that are now in Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, as well as buildings in Toronto Community Housing Corporation. RPATH has a goal to improve the quality of life for people with physical disabilities and to identify and remove accessibility barriers. Kathy joins us today to provide an overview to the board on the background and activities of RPATH and to answer any questions from board members. Kathy, welcome to our meeting and take it away.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you, and good morning, directors. My name is Kathy Birch. I'm the founder and the chair of RPATH. We started this we had our first meeting in July of 2013, so we're in our 10th year of advocating for people with physical disabilities. We are a self-governing external committee. We don't answer to seniors housing and we don't answer to TSHC. We work with the teams to remove the barriers and to improve the quality of life for people with physical disabilities. I created this committee because at the time in TSHC, there was support for people with cognitive and all kinds of other disabilities, but there was nothing for people with physical disabilities, and there was discrimination by spaces where tenants could not participate in their communities. And that was the purpose, is to remove all those barriers, whether they be attitudinal or physical. all members of our path are certified for AODA compliance, and 2 of us are have been certified for delivering AODA training. And in saying that, I've made arrangements with seniors housing that I will be in the next 2 months delivering AODA training to our frontline staff and our volunteers as required by law. This is, it's planned out, and I deliver it so it applies specifically to their jobs and how they interact with tenants, how they plan events, how they set up a meeting room. That's not necessarily done by another agency that doesn't know the business. So it's really honed to the housing business at hand. We make recommendations to Toronto Community Housing for capital and capital planning as far as projects, multi-year plans as well. We make recommendations on policies, whether it be the accessibility policy or the tenant engagement policy or communications. Those are our main policies that we make recommendations to. Our policy recommendations always go to the CEO of either TCHC or seniors housing. And that way it stays consistent. Our investment in capital planning is because we are out on sites when design and engineering are going out to scope a project, because we make sure of the functional accessibility to the spaces. We do, we help along with the engagement with the tenants along the process of getting those projects moving forward. We make sure that the spaces are going to work, and based on, it's a little tricky right now because we're trying to get people's memory in place of pre-COVID and what kind of engagement took place before. So and because a lot of staff are new, we have to rely on the tenants to have that institutional memory of what did they do before. So how do we make the spaces better? How do we invest this money? We don't do Band-Aid fixes anymore. We go through and we change these communities so that they are truly functional, and that the money spent, we look for every dollar spent to last 20 years other than regular maintenance. We review drawings. We do final inspections after a project's done. We'll go back and take the drawings that we approved and make sure that it hits all the marks. And if it doesn't, then we try and catch it before and fix whatever needs to be fixed. A lot of times it's little, I'm kind of picky. I make sure that all the light switch covers are straight, and and they aren't missing a nail in a baseboard, or that paint doesn't, isn't on a piece of glass or something like that. I'm kind of picky that way. We co-authored the Toronto Community Housing Accessibility Standards that provides functional spaces over and above the Ontario building codes, because the building code does not work for most mobility devices that are currently used by people, or what's even coming up in the near future. We advocated with the City of Toronto when they were developing their Toronto Accessibility Design Guidelines to make sure that Toronto Community Housing's ABS was included for residential spaces, and that it would apply to spaces such as hostels, and in particular, like the modular builds that are being developed in that. So we've been working with the city on that as well. We advocated at the executive committee before this corporation was even formalized and approved to make sure that as this corporation was being developed, that the accessibility program in TCHC would continue into this corporation, because that way the tenants who were formerly TCHC tenants would still have the opportunity to have the same quality of unit modifications, and that their common spaces would be modified to the TCHC ABS rather than reverting back to OBC that didn't work. Because literally I went into buildings that were being just opened, and I would have to make like a 13-point turn to get into a bathroom. The Ontario Building Code is terrible for people with disabilities. And as we advocated for those standards to carry through into this corporation, we also went to Councillor Wong Tam and advocated, as part of the motion to approve this corporation, that a tenant advisory committee be part of the framework of this corporation, which is how STAC came about. We work with Seniors Communications Department extensively for digital content, posters, you know, and advise on their communication policies. When we're out and working on scoping a project, we talk about the agencies, especially in seniors buildings. You get a lot of agencies involved in them for PSWs for different things. And we're checking on those use of space agreements, the commercial agreements, to make sure that they're separated. We found that a lot of the agencies did not have matrix to make sure that they're living up to the commitment of the agreements. And so part of doing the scoping and the initial tenant engagement is to find out, are the tenants in our buildings, are they happy with the agencies? Are they giving them what they need? Or are they serving the greater community more than the building they're in? And they're getting these spaces to use in our buildings, but if they're serving the greater community as opposed to our own tenants, are we doing the right things? And then we advise management of our findings, and then they take appropriate steps as needed. And we have asked and advocated for, instead of use of space agreements being 5 years, which is a typical commercial lease, use of space agreements are only 2 years, and that they have matrix and reporting markers that they have to hit yearly, so that we know that they're delivering. And that also helps us to determine how we design the spaces, whether we need, if the use of space agreement calls out for X amount of square footage, is it current? Do they use it? Are they, there's a lot of questions that go with it and a lot of investigation. And we do that initial, and if it's kind of iffy as to whether they're hitting their mark or not, then we turn it over, we make our recommendations, and then it's up to the corporation to do the deeper dive and find out and advise us, so we know how to help Toronto Community Housing design common spaces. It's quite intensive. The monitoring is important, especially when in seniors housing, when you have so many independent living agencies and making sure, so sometimes they're using the kitchens. Are they using them? You know, are we blocking off a full day for an agency to use it, but they really only need it for, say 4 hours? And so why do they have it all that? Are the tenants feeling too institutionalized by constantly having agencies run their community rooms other than the evenings and weekends? We're asking all those questions that have never been asked before, but we're finding out now, and that helps deliver better quality of service to your tenants. We ensure people with disabilities can function in we've got regional offices and SSC offices that are being developed. We need to make sure that not only can the tenants come into these space and function with their mobility device, but we have to make sure that this corporation can hire somebody with disabilities. So we're touching every aspect of the business, for housing anyway. We've been driving the development of the accessibility program at Toronto Community Housing since I opened it, because AODA came into effect in 2005. I started RPath in 2013. For those 8 years, Toronto Community Housing's accessibility budget was 1.5 million for common spaces and in-suite. That means they were not meeting duty to accommodate legislation. And so we had to start building that budget and by proof of need. And we'd go out to communities and we'd find out who couldn't get their unit modified, who's at risk of falling, and making tenants more aware that this was available. And by doing that, we built the program up enough that when the opportunity came to apply for the co-funding through the feds in the city, we could qualify, and we were successful at getting the $1.34 billion in co-funding in 2019. Capital projects, they're monstrous. They are huge because we don't do Band-Aid fixes anymore. We go in, we move walls, we take stages down, we do all, change flooring, we do all of it. This is work that changes lives because it allows people to age in place longer in their units and in their community. So it's one thing to change your unit, but if you can't get in your building, what good is changing your unit? And so we are adamant about making the communities work, because we don't have as much long-term care as we need, and we've got an aging society. So we need to make sure that people are safe and that they can live with dignity, independence, and all of those core principles of the Human Rights Code. We engage with tenants not only during the projects, but when they need help individually. I get phone calls every week, several of them a week, sometimes from the same tenant, where maybe they're just scared of their unit modifications. Sometimes they've got so many questions that they're scared to even ask them. We go out and we talk to the tenants, and we alleviate those fears. Like, are they going to have to pay for the unit modification? No, they're not. If they are told they need to move out during construction, one of the fears is that they won't get their unit back. And so those things are all the things that we work with the tenants on. Currently, I'm this year in seniors housing, we will be producing and probably in January delivering, but we're at least getting it produced this year, is an accessibility is for you package. Our Path has written a booklet that literally walks you through step by step by step of how a unit modification comes about, like why they may not hear from the accessibility coordinator for 6 weeks because they're hiring the architect, or because they're going through the procurement process to hire the construction crew. But if you don't tell the tenants these steps, they think they're being forgotten about. Why on these big capital projects, they may not hear from the design team for a couple of months because it's waiting to go through zoning at the city or committee of adjustments, and you have to educate the tenants that way, and that eliminates the or at least alleviates some of the feelings of being forgotten about. And
Thanks,
and
thanks,
that's
Kathy. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got a few more minutes. I want to leave some time for questions from the committee.
okay, great. I do have one
Okay.
request.
Okay, go ahead.
The one request I have is that you put a motion forward today to make for staff to set all their computers to 14-point calibre fonts as their default, so that we can achieve accessibility in all documentation.
Oh,
Thank you. Appreciate that comment, of course. Okay, Brenda, I saw your hand up. Thanks, Kathy. It was a great presentation, and thanks for the work that you and our path are doing. It's necessary and important work.
yes, thank you very much. I think Kathy, we met in the past at one of the meetings.
Oh,
So thank you for
probably.
your presentation. This is an issue dear to my heart, and I had a question about aging in place. Accessibility is not only, of course, physical accessibility, but program accessibility as well. Has your group commented at all on personal care, PSW, housekeeping services that will help folks with disabilities age in place and stay longer? So I don't know whether you've been able to offer some assistance there or not.
We will advise people that may not be aware of how they go about getting that kind of assistance.
Sure.
We advise them about if they need specific equipment. We will tell them how they can get funding for it, or particularly a lot of seniors don't know that depending on what your Canada pension is, you can still apply to ODSP for extended medical coverage so that you can get your wheelchair repaired, and we give all that information out to the tenants, and through communications, there's posters out there,
Sure.
and all of those kinds of things. So yeah, Brenda, we do.
And do you recommend that there be on-site? I mean, I'm just wondering I know there are a few projects, locations we have where there are either agreements with agencies or community groups or LINS funding on-site PSWs. So it's not just.
I won't say that we recommend it,
Okay.
but it depends on the agencies, because some
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
some agencies are really good. Some of them don't deliver so well, whether it be
Yeah.
Pace or Bellwoods or
Yeah.
Loft or whoever. We don't make recommendations of what agency should be there, but we certainly will tell the corporate and make recommendations and advise Tom and his team of who's not delivering according to what we learn from tenant engagement. And then it's up to them our job is to help you guys make the best decisions you can make. It's not to tell you what to do, it's to guide you to make the right decisions and the best ones that are cost effective.
Thank you.
Thanks. Linda.
I'll be brief. I just want to, I was really pleased, Kathy, to see you on the agenda, and it's great to actually, I've been waiting for our path to come to TSHC, because I think that we can really benefit from the guidance, and I like the way you described your role to advise, and just thank you very much for a fulsome report and for all that you've done over many years. This is one area where we're actually very fortunate that the years of experience that Kathy and her committee have put in can directly benefit us, and we might want to actually have some background information just so the board know what the role is and what it isn't actually. But thank you, Kathy, that was great.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah, thanks. I think Linda has expressed all of our sentiments. We appreciate the presentation and the work you've done. And if there's some additional background material that we can have access to, that'd be great. And I'm sure Tom would have taken into account your comment about making sure that our materials are accessible by perhaps enhancing the fonts as one of the methods of doing so. So thanks again, Kathy. Appreciate all the work you're doing, and thanks for the presentation today.
And we will continue to be here, and you will probably see me many, many times deputing. So you might as well get used to my face, because I'm around everywhere and I stick my nose in and make sure that we're making the right decisions. But that's how we get better. That's how.
Yeah, we need you and your team to keep us accountable. So thank you.
It's more about the fix than the problem.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And just so you all know, at the RPath table, we meet monthly except for August and December, and the corporation does have a permanent seat at the RPath meetings every month, and there's always somebody there representing seniors.
Great, good to know. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Have a great day, folks.
Take care. All righty. So with that, we'll move to item number 14, the CEO's report. Tom, over to you again.
Yes, through the chair, thank you. So I have a couple of items to report on, and so much of the work that has taken place is within the report, so I won't touch on that, just a few other high points. But I did want to start with the listening tour there, and there is a presentation that speaks to the tenant observations and comments on the listening tour. I just thought it was really timely. I guess I'm almost quarter of the way through all of the buildings, just to share some of my insights and certainly what has helped to guide our work as we move forward. And a really important part of these tours that has kind of evolved for me is the time I spend with staff, even just the half hour before. And we tour the building, and get just to really see some of that how engaged, positive, and a lot of pride that is within our staff and what they're delivering to the buildings. It also, though, I've also seen, and this came up with the tenants, is consistency, right? They too, the staff, want kind of more consistency kind of in their work, in their location, and certainly that better serves our tenants. So that really, from an operational perspective, we need to stay focused on that. And also with the staff, we go to see a vacant unit, and that's ready to rent. And I have to tell you, the consistency in terms of the units as they're prepared to be turned over is stellar. In terms of even the color and the maintenance work that has been done, where kitchen cabinetry has needed to be replaced, and shelving, that's happening, and that speaks to the work that Toronto Community Housing has done within their facilities and capital project work. I see a lot of the projects as a result of that 1.3 billion being implemented in the buildings, and not to mention things like accessibility to what Kathy was speaking about. It's really great to see that in the buildings, and also just the overall condition of the buildings. I haven't been to them all, but for some of them, they just, when you're walking up to them, there's just a really, I think, a very positive feel. The grounds, and they're clean in the buildings, and so that has been just really positive for me to see that across all of it. Yes, there's work that needs to be done around maintenance items and capital, but just wanted to share with the board that was some of have been many of my impressions. And then just also, with the tenants, just wanting to mention, there's, in the presentation, there's a lot about what needs to change, but I've heard a lot of positive comments from the tenants, and one in particular, it was quite a difficult session that we were having with the tenants, but a couple of them came up and they didn't speak English, and they had with them their phone, and they had a little speaker, and through Google Translator, they shared this message with everybody about, how much they liked living in the building, how it was so important to them, and how much the staff had supported them. And so that's just a kind of a memory that I have from one of those listenings to it. But it also speaks to a lot of the positive comments that I received from tenants. And then just finally, you with the work that we're looking at doing around quality improvement, around safety and security, around pest control, staff-tenant relationships. This is, what we're hearing at the listening tours. But there's also what has become apparent to be beyond what cuts across all of our buildings is the building specificity around certain needs. And one for me really has percolated up. What I just want to mention is translation. It's been incredible for me to go into these buildings, and some of them the session goes incredibly smoothly. Language isn't a barrier. I've been in some where I can see how a good translator can make a successful session with the tenants, and in others where, if the translation isn't right, it makes it really hard to communicate. And so when we're looking at our priorities, this has been really helpful for me just to, we've spoke about translation, but actually to be out there and experiencing how impactful it can be to those relationships. Just wanted to raise that kind of one of my very specific learnings around the listening tours. So for me, it is, and I think it will be a real benefit. I'm hoping to the tenants and for organizations to keep on those. I also just wanted to take a moment today to just to really once again within formally at the board kind of recognize Andrew Reyes, our staff member who passed away in August. So he had been with us with the Toronto community and then Toronto seniors for over 20 years. He was a staff member, a CMP, custodial maintenance person, who the staff all liked. The tenants were once again very engaged with him. And we had put up an immemorial page for staff to comment on. And there was many staff who went to the funeral, leaders who went to the funeral for Andrew, and just wanted to kind of recognize the contribution that he had made and thank him for that. And really, we do appreciate his time with us, and just wanted to share that with the board. Next,
Thank you, Tom.
yes, next, just a small item is around I'm currently on the board of ONFA, the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association. I am running for the board again, and that did require, essentially, I'm just reading here, was a letter from Fareed indicating that the support of Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation to act as their representative while serving on the ONFA board, and just wanted to kind of confirm that as information with the board today. And just one final note as part of my report, and this is just really from a timing perspective. There's still considerable work to do on this, but as a follow-up from the formation of the corporation in June, the transition agreement, and then there by the end of the year, there is comment around the moving towards a lease agreement. That just for today, just sharing that that December 31st date won't be met for various reasons, but in November certainly can provide more update to the board around there's certain business requirements that we have to establish around that lease. There's certain IT impediments that have to be overcome. So just there was the timing around the end of the year for that, but just wanted to confirm with the board that it would be beyond that, and no date set, but just that I could provide more of an update just as that deadline approaches. So that is my update for today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Are there any questions for Tom? Okay, Brenda?
Just to support Tom and his comments, and really how appreciative I've been present at some of these listening tours, and how appreciative the tenants are of him being there, his manner, his way of talking to them, and you could be very proud of the work Tom's doing, and I think it's terrific. I would also recommend and suggest, because some board members had asked if they could visit some of the buildings, this might be an opportunity for other board members to attend. And I know my experience, it was quite moving. I mean, the tenants do come up and say, we're really appreciative for the board members to come. They do see that importance and that distinction. So just to let you know that people are certainly following us and monitoring us and are appreciative. And particularly the staff, Tom, I mean, I really see how hardworking they are and how well maintained some of the buildings are. And tenants came up to me and said, you know, we're very happy with the staff. That's not our issue, you know. I know it varies by building and by district, but it's quite, you know, sobering experience, and I highly recommend it.
Thanks. Carrie?
Yeah, just quickly, Brenda, I can concur with everything you said. And having been on the receiving end of Tom's very first listening tour event, huge success. Heard nothing but positives. And I think Tom will say people have asked, when are you coming back? When you get through everyone.
Hold your breath. But
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you done good, Tom.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item number 15. Linda.
Yes, and this is a dense agenda item. There's a number of different items, and because they're kind of unique, I think that probably best for it if we just go step by step and stop after each of the areas. But I did want to just acknowledge that our squares have increased. We have a number of people that have joined us for this this session, and this actually is a report out from a very busy and I would say productive September 12th meeting of our small committee. In attendance today, we have, I think, Joseph Burley, who's a management consultant with Senior Services, and we have Andrea Austin, and we always like seeing your face here, the Director of Senior Services and Community Programs from the city, and Jennifer Doherty, who we're also very happy to have here. And we also have some guests from Health Common Solutions, Sophia, who's becoming part of our team, I think, too, and Sonia, and Cassandra may be joining us. I'm not sure if she's here today, but thank you so much. And like I said, I think relationships are key to our success with our tenants, and I think they're key to our success as board members. And it's great to have you here. So I'm just going to go through a few items that we covered and stop because there was a large package that was here. We did actually have a report on the first 100-day priorities, and Tom actually provided that summary. And you know, I think what's becoming very clear is, and kind of helpful to us, is that the priorities that are coming up at different tables are actually aligning. And I think Tom was excellent at reinforcing that the priorities that are coming forward are safety and security, communication with staff, access to supports and services, community development, and most important, I think, tenant engagement and in each of those areas. I will say that, Tom, I echo the kudos that others had in terms of the success of your listening tours. Perhaps actually we could share the dates of future events so that board members might be able to drop in. And the one area that we actually just reinforced to Tom and his team was maybe thinking ahead in terms of translation services. We learned a lot about that process with Health Commons, that some people have actually said, if we know that there's a big population of people that don't speak English as their first language, that to try to get that translation here. But otherwise, actually, I think the feedback was equally very positive. So that was the first item. Any questions or anything around the first 100-day priorities? Great. So, and then quickly, we then moved into the vacancy report, and I think that this, I'm sure that our board members have taken a look at this as well. It was actually a good report from Grant in terms of the high vacancy rate, and most importantly, the goals for addressing the high vacancy and the goal of actually getting it to 2%. It has been trending downward, but this is actually a metric that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on, and we'll talk about it a little bit more with the operational dashboard. And I see Brenda's hand up, and I know that Grant is on the line if there's any questions around this.
Sorry, it was just a question around the 100-day plan.
Okay.
And there was some discussion about security, safety and security. And there was a mention of 24/7 coverage of, I guess, security staff, or mine was just a question or comment as to, is this the solution that we actually need to do 24/7 security? I don't know if that's going to be possible, obviously financially, but also if that's really what's needed. So I just wanted to red flag it. I'd be concerned if we're hiring security guards who basically sit and then don't intervene, because that's been my experience. When you hire these folks, they won't intervene much, or they say call the police, and then the police do even less. So
yeah, Tom, do you want to speak to that? Because I don't
Yes.
think that the recommendation was across the board 24/7. I think
okay.
we're reporting also on what the themes are and what the messages are. Tom, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Just quickly through the chair to Brenda, and as I've been saying to the tenants as this comes up, this has to be fact-based, right, in terms of what is the best solutions moving forward with safety and security. And so it's not necessarily 24/7 coverage. We know it costs about $250,000 per building per year. That right now is a constraint. And so as part of the QI quality improvement project, specifically on safety and security, it will prioritize where we can move and be most effective.
Thank you. And then link that to the FOB discussion too, because that might help some of it as well.
Great. Yeah. And, I reminded every once in a while that we're actually still early days in this corporation. And, it's great that we're actually getting this this feedback, and that it's directly from the tenants. So then moving on to the next section was we received a report on the community programming. And this is a dynamic process. I think that, what we wanted to make sure as a board is that the message that we heard our tenants tell us, over the last couple of months, is we must be open for business, open rooms, and that we do want to actually have the ability to bring programs into the buildings that are actually the programs that the tenants want to have. And so we received a comprehensive listing of the programs that are happening post-COVID. There was some follow-up, I think not at a governance level for us to get into the weeds of, specific building by building, room by room. But I think what we will be watching is the trending around the amount of programming that is happening that is actually tenant supported, tenant led, and responsive to tenant feedback. So we heard about community programs. Any questions or comments on that item? Brenda, through the chair.
Thank you. I was kind of struck by how few there were. Is it just me? But it seemed like, I understand COVID has knocked a lot out, but when I looked at all the programming, and given that there's 83 buildings, it spoke to me about how there's lots of room here for improvement, because just on the basis of what's available. And I was kind of surprised by how little health and wellness there was. I was expecting there to be, I know I have a sister who's in a not-for-profit seniors building, and they have a LINS agreement. LINS funds this organization to provide on-site PSW. That's why I keep on asking these questions, because then you can control the staff and the quality of the service. So I think that's something we need to seriously look at in terms of aging in place. If there's minimal health and wellness going on,
Yeah, and I'm going to let Grant speak to this. And Monique just actually advised me that there is actually a deputant. I actually don't have the deputant list, Fareed. So if there's a deputant on this.
We've got a deputant on this one. So it's just I'd like to finish off your update before I invite the deputant in.
Okay, but whenever you want me to stop, just let me know, because I don't have that. Grant, do you want to speak to just Brenda's point? And then if you want me to go to the deputant, I'm happy to do that.
Yes, thank you, Linda, and then through the chair. So just briefly, so pre-COVID, we had approximately 95 programs across the buildings. Post-COVID restrictions, it's been an area that's been evolving. So when we submitted the report for QTE, we were up to 115, and we are seeing an increase in tenant-led programming, which is a good thing that we've been looking for. And I know it's something that we've heard through STAC, for example, to try and help encourage tenant-led programming. So we're starting to see that, although it's not the majority, it is increasing. I'll let you know that this is an area that we expect to get more and more programming opportunities. I can tell you, for example, even in the last month, we have 18 more programming considerations. We're up to 133 now that are being processed. But you're right, Brenda, in terms of the overall number of health and wellness, it is a lower number. And I think the Health and Wellness Initiative, which is one we're going to talk about in a few minutes with Health Commons, is an area that will help us to focus on how we're going to improve in that particular area. We are working on a more detailed view as well, as Linda noted, down to the building specific level. And then there'll be more communications as well going out with tenants on how to help move forward on these conversations.
Well, the good news in a sense, because in a sense it's kind of lots of room for improvement. You know, as I say, I was quite surprised how few and how uninnovative some of these things are. And we have such a wonderful opportunity here. I used to run, as you know, programs and off-site. So, you know, I know how creative you can be when you do off-site programming. And I think going forward, we need to have a little critical view as to what we want to develop and encourage, not only just tenant-led activities, but anyone who comes in and delivers programs. And I think we can be, you know, this is a great opportunity to be a little creative and forward thinking. And if we want to set our mark, being innovative, you know, it doesn't cost a lot to have an agency come in and
Thanks, Brenda.
offer things.
So we got to move on. And so Linda, thanks. And with your permission, the deputant is ready. So I'm going to invite the deputant and we can continue the discussion afterwards.
Thank you.
So let me take this opportunity to welcome Siavash Fayouzi. Welcome, Siavash, to the board meeting. Please note that you have 5 minutes to address the board, and afterward, the board may have some questions. So Siavash, welcome again, and over to you for your deputant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So let me stop welcome Siavash Fayouzi. Welcome, Siavash, to the board meeting.
Hi.
I'm in trouble hearing. I'm not sure if it's just me.
Okay.
No, I can't hear either.
Siavash, welcome again.
Hello, good morning, all. I have no any idea you can hear me or
Good morning.
no.
I can hear you now. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I should thank all of you about the opportunity that you give me. Sorry, my device is not too up to date. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. I appreciated all of your time and the opportunity that I have. My question is about this. Something happened in our building. Before transformation, I received a book that guides us how we can deal about this change. And a couple of days after that, I saw our billiard room was shut down and it will be changed to the office. As I remember, in the page of 26 of the user guide from the senior housing, it clearly described that nothing change will be happened during and after the transaction. And I start to ask about that, send the email and follow all of the rule, talk to the supervisor, talk to the region manager, sent email to all of them, and I didn't get any answer about this. Ignoring the rule, or I have no idea, can I use the violation of this rule? And after all of this communication, I didn't get answer, and I sent all of the communication to the solution center about 1 month ago. And I didn't receive any response from them. For the last thing, I guess I want to report to, I have no any idea, is there somebody over the board to take responsibility and follow my complaint about the breaking this rule. I haven't, if there is any question, Ms. Bizing have all of document attachment, all of our conversation during last 2 months. And if you have any question about this complaint for me, please let me know. Just I want to know how should I do after all of this waiting and requesting.
Thank you very much, and thanks for bringing this issue to our attention. If there are no other questions from the committee, I'm going to ask Tom perhaps to take note and follow up with a response to the deputant.
Yes, through the chair.
No,
Yes.
I don't have any question. If there is any question, I'm ready to
Yes,
answer.
for sure. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none. So thank you very much. Our CEO, Tom, will, I assume, make some notes and have that information, and we'll follow up on the issue you raised, and I'm sure we'll get back to you with some responses. Thanks again.
And I don't think there's any other deputations on that item. So I'm going to move on to the next item that we chatted about, which we were very pleased about as a committee, is our new operational performance dashboard. This item came forward. We will be actually regularly receiving reports in the areas of vacancies, arrears, maintenance requests, pest management, community safety and security, and administrative requests. And I would say actually our last deputant raised an issue that is actually more broadly of great importance to us, and that's actually follow through. You know, we are actually hearing from our tenants that you know, a little bit of frustration that there isn't as much follow through on items. So that we want to make sure that issues are resolved. And this is something that we would be monitoring through this dashboard. And I'll talk a little bit more about this with our QIP. But I think that I do want to give some time at this point to the excellent report that was provided by Health Commons. And I will let Andrea make a few comments, and I'm so pleased that our partners are here. I do want to say, we've got some more people that want to. Okay, so we do actually have a deputant on this one, but I'll just actually say that that the report was well received by the tenants that deputed at our committee meeting and by the committee members. Fareed, do we want to have the deputant speak before Andrea or after?
I think so, Linda. If Matthew, if your deputant is ready, I think we should bring her in.
Terrific.
I'm looking for some guidance from Matthew here.
So our deputant ready to proceed?
Second deputant will be patched in momentarily. Maureen Kohesi, 1 moment.
Thanks, Matthew.
Maureen Kohesi is now on the line for item 15.
Thanks a lot. So Maureen, welcome again to the board meeting. Please note that you have 5 minutes to address the board. Afterwards, the board may have some questions for you. So Maureen, thanks again, and the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Fareed, and thank you to the rest of the board for giving me a few minutes today. Just want to make sure. Can you hear me? I'm still
Yes,
getting
we
a beep.
can. Yeah, no, we're
Okay.
hearing you loud and clear. Thanks.
All right. I want to comment on Commons report. First of all, I want to say I think it's absolutely fantastic. They've done an excellent job of listening and putting all of this together, and it's a really good foundation and guide for moving forward. I'm really, really pleased. There are a couple of areas where I just want to mention a couple of sentences in it and relate those to the reality on the ground and work that still needs to be done. If this is not a slight against everything that already has been done, I know everybody is working enormously hard. But just where these things can apply. So in the report, on the third point, which is described as a working network, there are a couple of sentences that have wording such as system level planning that affects their health and wellness and providing input into that, or being able to shape systems and policies so tenant well-being is embedded into operations. Quality support in operations, making sure they're invested in the tenant voice is a key part of system planning. And this is mentioned several times throughout the report. And I just want to talk about how those could actually, there could be a little more work done on applying those now without any extra costs or hard work going forward. And I'll make reference to a couple of things in the report, the first 100 days that Grant put forward. And as Brenda mentioned about the security. First of all, which 6 buildings have been audited, and are tenants being spoken to when these audits are being done to get their input, to get a full idea of what's needed. And I agree that we don't need a price for full-time security until we've determined what type of security is needed. Tenants aren't involved in those discussions yet. And as for communications with the staff, under that section, it says operations with people and culture are developing a comprehensive staff training plan. Has staff been involved in that? And the answer to that is no. Regarding, there's a resolution specialist that it appeared, I don't know what allocated means. Does it mean they're hired or will be hired? And if there is a new complaint resolution specialist, tenants don't know about it. Staff doesn't know about it. How would you access someone like this? Do building staff even know about it? As Kathy Birch talked about the construction and the updates, and she's going to be involved. Plan project services is going to be involved. But so far, we're not hearing a lot on the way of updates. We've kind of had to go fishing for them. And I'm happy to say we were responded to positively with some of the detail that we asked for. But those need to be ongoing because our building in particular is going to be under at least 3 years of construction. We really don't have any sense as tenants as to what's happening with the structure of the corporation and how things are going to be divided up and who's going to be responsible. So when we talk about a working network, we need to really think about where tenants' voices are included in all of these things that are happening. So just putting that out there as a reminder to keep up the good work, and as you say, more needs to be done.
Thanks, Maureen, and thanks for respecting the time as well. Appreciate it, and your comments are quite timely as well. Any questions from the committee? Any questions for Maureen? Okay, thanks once again. Thanks a lot, Maureen.
Thank you for the board.
The importance of notifying tenants on a timely basis and providing that information, I think, is essential. And we've got a number of staff here that I'm sure are taking those comments seriously, and I'm sure will strive to do a better job to communicate how tenant might be able to access certain services. Linda, you want to continue? I know
Sure,
Brenda
and
has
I'll
a-
ask Andrea if you want to make a few comments about where we're at with this report, and then I know Brenda had her hand up, but let's maybe we'll start with you, Andrea, again. Thank you, and thank you, Maureen. It's so helpful to actually have your feedback, because I think it actually is helping us along the way.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you so much through the chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Austin, and I'm the Director of Senior Services and Community Programs in Senior Services and Long-Term Care at the City. In partnership with Health Commons Solutions Lab and with expert guidance from members of the Senior Tenant Advisory Committee, we are very pleased to submit this final report entitled Seniors Health and Wellness Initiative, Tenant Voices Improving Quality of Life. After positive reception at September 12th QTE, this report's coming to you as a final, fully formatted report, and it's designed to meet AODA compliance standards. And as you're all aware, the Seniors Health and Wellness Hubs were one of the 4 original innovations of the integrated service model, and they were intended to better connect senior tenants with the health and wellness services in their buildings. And there was an initial hub site that was proposed at 145 Strathmore, which is Greenwood Towers. And then in December of 2021, based on important feedback from senior tenants, including concerns related to building security and the use of common space, City Council directed Senior Services and Long-Term Care to lead a review of the Seniors Health and Wellness model and to make recommendations to the Toronto Seniors Housing Board related to implementation. So the same motion directed TSHC to remove 145 Strathmore from consideration as a hub pending this review. So to lead this review, we recruited an expert community-based not-for-profit partner, Health Commons Solutions Lab, and as you've read, the goal of this project evolved over the early months of the work and in response to tenant input and perspectives. So we moved away from a narrow focus on hubs and toward a broader understanding of tenant challenges, their needs and preferences with respect to health and wellness and access to health and wellness supports in their building and in their neighborhood. And this review served as a complete reset. So there was no predetermined plans or preconceived notions. And we did that to ensure that any and all directions related to health and wellness are meaningfully driven by tenant voices. So to this end, Health Commons engaged 87 tenants over the spring of this year, 2022, and under the close weekly advice and oversight of the Senior Tenant Advisory Committee. And based on these engagements and after positive feedback at the June 30th board, Health Commons has brought forward a final report, including key insights, 34 recommendations, and strategies to move forward. So we bring this report for your information with full recognition that implementation of these recommendations will take time and collaboration and will be subject to financial considerations. So Senior Services thanks Health Commons, the Senior Tenant Advisory Committee, and the 87 senior tenants who were engaged for this stellar report. We're here to continue providing strategic support to Toronto Seniors Housing in response to board direction and advancing an action plan that better and more responsively addresses the health and wellness needs of senior tenants. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Andrea. And I know, Brenda, did you have a question or comment? And I know that Sophia and Sonia are here too, if anyone has any questions about the report and this gift that we actually have in terms of some very, very clear recommendations that that we intend, I think, as a board want to support. Brenda?
I had a couple of questions before Health Commons, but the question I have here with Health Commons is it's a great report. Thank you very much for commissioning it, and Health Commons people for facilitating and completing it. And if it could be explained to us, if there is an answer, how this report and the process will link into the work we're doing. I know it was directed and ordered by the seniors unit, right? And I'm just wondering how we would fold our understanding from that report into the work we do. because they are reporting to you guys and not reporting to us. So
yeah, and remembering that it was actually commissioned before we were actually even a
That's
corporation.
right.
But I bet Grant and Tom could speak to this, because I don't think that they're seeing this as just a city report. Grant or Tom?
Sure. Did you want me to take this one,
Sure.
Tom? Okay, so through the chair. Yeah, so this report, it's a very important report in the context that it brings to the scope of how to look at health and wellness. And in terms of how it's broader now than it was before, I think, in terms of how we were looking at it. And I think that's going to be very helpful. The recommendations in here, and this was discussed at the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee briefly, as well as next steps, is to develop an action plan. And that action plan and next steps would be in consultation with the city and with Andrea and her team and other stakeholders at the city in terms of how to move this forward in alignment to some of the other activities and plans more broadly that we've already been talking about, for example, in other aspects of today's meeting and the broader strategic directions, for example. So I think this is a great opportunity to leverage the work that's been done, the engagement that's been done, to use it as an input into future planning activities at different levels. And that's what I think we should do. And the report before you today, the cover report that we provided has in that one, basically, we've included to develop the action plan.
Thank you. I thought the philosophy around the notion of community and building community development principles is really important, and could be something that guides us as our operating philosophy. We're about building community, right? It's not only about building houses, but these are people's homes. So we have to have a mindset that is aware, acknowledges that. So I appreciate the report.
Thanks,
And
Brenda.
I'll wait if you want to ask the other question.
So is there anything else on from this? I think, I think that our committee is actually, very interested in our staff and our board oversight of the 34 recommendations, and actually the highly prioritized. And not to put you on the spot, Sophia or Sonia, is there anything, any words of wisdom that you want to add, and then we'll move to the next item?
I'm going to give Sonia a chance to think about it. I would just say that first off, I just wanted to say a very heartfelt thanks to the seniors that worked with us in this process and contributed time, and actually more importantly, their trust in the process gave us really good direction. And I think the wisdom that was required to be able to put the recommendations forward. I think we heard from many of the seniors that this is a moment of reset, the establishment of the corporation. And we're hearing, even in this phone call, Maureen talked about the very practical ways in which these recommendations can immediately become infused. So I think to Brenda's question, what's the relationship between a report that was initiated by the city and the work that the Housing Corporation is doing now? I think it really is meant to represent a shift in mindset about the intrinsic role of senior tenants as experts in their own housing. So we invite experts all the time to advise us in the shaping of policy, and seniors living in housing are experts in their own experience. I think the report reflects that, and the recommendations that came forward were very practical and very doable. And there are opportunities to be able to live that now. And we're excited to hear, even in this conversation, Tom talking about the recognition that every building is different, that circumstances in each case are quite different, and that the path to understanding the best fit for services is to ask. And so that's exciting for us to hear. I don't know if Sonia has anything else to add.
Thank you ever so much to both of you. And we're going to be using this report and in a very practical way. So thank you to everyone. I think those are the end of the items for information, Fareed. I think the next item is actually for approval. So I'm not sure if there's other questions in general. I think Brenda had one.
Yeah, thanks. Brenda, any
Yes,
questions?
Thank you, Sophia and Sonia.
Thank you. It was regarding the dashboard, and I know we had talks about this before. In what way is it different than the previous dashboard? Have we added additional categories, or is it much the same and it's just been modified?
I think Grant can speak to this.
So thank you. Through the chair, this dashboard, this is the first comprehensive dashboard that we brought forward. So previous to this dashboard, we had brought forward sort of a mock-up of what the dashboard could look like.
Yeah.
Earlier QTE. This is actually our first comprehensive dashboard with these metrics in Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation.
Right, right.
In terms of the only thing that we really changed for the most part, we did change a bit of the structure of some of the information in this view versus the mock-up or the sort of the preview. This view has pest management information that we a bit more than we had we didn't have it at this level in the earlier version. So we've included some additional pest data, and we're going to continue to work on expanding on that.
Okay, could I add and also make reference to the 100-day plan? We passed by it pretty quickly, and the issue of data gathering on race, ethnicity, language, and I want to keep on referring to this even in our hiring process. We had set norms and expectations of what we had hoped Tom would complete in his hiring. But I think it also is incumbent upon us in our dashboard. What's not counted then doesn't get dealt with. So I'd like to add to the dashboard or any process that we have the beginning of proper accounting for race, ethnicity, difference, linguistic, whatever, the whole range. We can't use the excuse that we haven't asked for it before. Those days are gone because now every public institution is being asked to be accountable on these matters, vis-a-vis equity issues, post-urge Florida, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to add whether following up from the 100-day plan, there was no, in that box, the summary box, there was an empty box on this. So I'd like to have Tom look at that and see if there can be any report back on how that will be implemented. And likewise, in the dashboard, I'd like to have some component of the beginning steps of starting to count and be accountable on these issues. We're talking about translation and the complexity of it. You can't translate and do those things if you don't know what are the language groups that you need to deal with.
Thank you. So we can bring that back to our next committee, and thank you for that feedback as well, Brenda. Anything else from any of those items for information, Jim?
Yeah, does planned project services fall under operational?
I believe so.
Earlier this year, we got a notice from the planned project services saying that they were going to replace all of the windows in the building beginning on May 16th. But instead, they spent starting then and all through the summer, replacing all the doors inside each tenant unit and the fire doors for each floor. Then we received a notice this week saying that the window replacement is going to start on January 23rd. So I phoned the project director and asked, like, who did the planning on this? And she said she'd get back to me on that. So I'm waiting to hear, because it's upset quite a few of the tenants, including myself.
Thank you, Jim. I think it's another concrete example of, kind of at a macro level, communication and changes when things happen, and how to engage, like, tenant trust. It's like on a day-to-day basis, if things actually aren't followed through or communicated, then actually it's hard to get to the big strategic initiative. So thank you for bringing that. And maybe, Tom, somebody could follow up with Jim on the specifics of that building specific issue that you raised. So I think at this point, if we're okay.
She promised that she would get back to me.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
So I think that all of the items that we presented at this point are actually for information. We probably need a motion. What do you think, Fareed, for those
We've got
ones?
one.
I think,
yeah, we've got a motion, but we also have one other.
Yeah, and I think it's for approval.
Yeah.
So I think the next one is for approval, the QIP.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So
I can hold on. Wendy, did you want to say something?
We also have a deputant.
Okay, yes,
Yeah,
and we have a
that's
deputant for
good.
the next one. So I was trying to actually get the information ones kind of covered and then move to the deputant for the next item. But we can do it all at the end, Fareed. I just wasn't sure.
Okay, well, why don't we do it at the end? Let's bring the tenant in, sorry, the deputant in, and then
Okay.
we can sort of go wrap up.
Thanks, Fareed. So
Thanks.
the deputant's ready for the next item, which is on the QIPs, the Quality Improvement Program projects of priority.
Bill Lohman is now on the line for item 15.
Thanks a lot. So I'd like to welcome Bill Lohman to the board meeting. Bill, you've got 5 minutes to address the board. Afterwards, the board may have some questions for you. So go ahead, Bill.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hunter, and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard this morning. My name is Bill Lohman. After 3 months of a summer sequester, it's nice to see you all again. And I'd like to begin by welcoming Mr. Amin on this inaugural meeting as chair of the Seniors Housing Board. We're very fortunate to have the breadth of expertise and insight that he brings to guide the board's focus to ensure the transition to a new and independent Toronto housing is successful. There's over 140 some pages of information in this QTE report, and 5 minutes really doesn't do justice, especially for somebody as loquacious as me. And you know, I really do realize how massive and complex this undertaking truly is. And while I appreciate the extensive amount of work that has been accomplished over the summer, and it's a lot, it is pretty much focused on the key priorities and metrics for the integrated service models accountability framework, and not any front-facing psychosocial realities that confront tenants and inhibit community connection and cohesion and communication. It would seem that the purpose and focus of staff's activities is more about data collection objectives than connecting communities to a spirit of wholesome well-being. How can you expect trust and achieve meaningful outcomes when tenants have no input or influence in the decision-making process? We asked for a list of the tenant leaders so that we could begin reaching out and connecting with our isolated peers a year ago. And today, we still have no idea who the leaders are and how to connect with them. You know, there really is a difference between a right to privacy and anonymity, especially when someone is a building representative for an entire community. You know, can we move past this sort of do not need to know approach? Please. You know, I mean, if you really want us to help to build vibrant communities and connect to each other through councils, give us the list. We also recently had a refreshed use of space policy for senior tenants. And like last year, there is a bit of an uproar about the ambiguous language that requires tenants to secure insurance for their tenant-led programs, especially since tenant-led use of space initiatives were covered by Toronto's housing insurance prior to COVID. To tell tenants that they must obtain insurance beforehand, but might be eligible for house insurance, imposes unreasonable constraint and upfront demands on tenants and any engagement efforts they might have. And because tenant-led programs are an integral piece of the tenant engagement plan in support of an integrated service model, tenant-led initiatives deserve the same regard and benefit of indemnity that is given staff when they use the space to engage. Trust and cooperation are not a standard practice today, and that's why their empathy and perspective seem to be lost. You know, seniors continue to be unaware and uninvolved because there is no on-the-ground staff effort to reach out and connect with the communities. part of the disconnect is that staff are being trained to record and manage information for KPI metrics and not to encourage tenant participation that builds trust and inspires community to be positive and develop a sense of well-being. So I think I just want to follow up on I think it's really important that we recognize, and I've been hearing that, how essential the tenant wisdom has been captured by Health Commons report. And it really is a guidebook that can build on the trust and positive collaboration with senior communities. And it really should be required reading for all staff and tenant reps so that we are all understand the different perspectives that are involved in this process. But what I've seen has been, what I'm seeing is really good, positive effort going forward. I'm just a nitpicker. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Any questions from the committee for Mr. Lohman? Seeing none. Once again, Bill, thank you very much. Your comments are important to us, and we have Tom and the team here, and the aspect of engaging tenants and giving you the opportunity to know who those individuals are. I'm sure we'll take a look at it and see whatever information we can provide to foster a more meaningful engagement. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, folks.
Thanks.
You too, Bill.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks. And so this is the final item, because I think we've talked about the listening tour. But the last piece that was presented to our committee was actually a focused approach on how we actually do the work, and to use some rigor using a quality improvement approach. We had a presentation on some suggested QIPs for short form, on safety and security, pest management, and staff and tenant relations. And you saw in your package a pretty detailed approach to how we would go about doing this and how we would ensure significant tenant engagement in these projects. And I did reflect at that committee that I haven't seen this kind of QI lens being taken at the housing corporations that I've been involved with it through here. And I think that this is actually a new approach and a new opportunity to actually really see, look at data and look at actually some scientific best practices to moving the metrics in these areas that are coming up as a priority going forward. So you can see that our meeting was actually a pretty dense meeting with a lot of very rich items. We may have been sequestered as a board, but our staff certainly wasn't, because we couldn't have done this actually meeting without actually the tremendous work of many, many people. And I just want to thank all of the staff who actually contributed to that. And I think Brenda has a question.
Yes, thank you. It's kind of technical. I'm looking at the suggested process for getting QIP started. That's the slide and the timeline. And is it practicable? I mean, this is asking a lot out of tenants to sit on a committee. And I'm cognizant of your comment about consultation overload, and well, I'm respectful of the idea of encouraging involvement, obviously. I just wanted to look technically, how is this going to work? And what is the staff support for this? Is it being directed by a particular staff member or members? Who's taking the lead on this? So where does the buck stop, so to speak?
Yeah, I think I'll let Tom speak to the staff piece. I think that the reality is actually, if we're going to engage tenants, we have to find a way to actually remove the barrier to tenant engagement. And I'm reminded regularly that there's a lot of tenants. So it may also be actually being doing a much more fulsome outreach to the tenant population. But Tom, or any of your team member want to speak to the staff support of this?
Yeah, through the chair to the board. So I just on the tenant engagement, I think these type of quality improvement projects, this is where it's imperative that we have tenant participation, and how we elicit it and how we support it. It's part of our mandate. It is essential. It's what we hear. So these are what we've been hearing is some of the key priorities. Therefore, we need tenants to help solve that. And you can see we will have commitment from our staff, Toronto Community Housing. It's imperative that they're at the table on this because something like pest management, that's a contract within their company.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So corporation. So we have to have them there. So I think we've been, the team has been very thoughtful around who needs to be at these tables. And once again, we have staff, whether it is at the kind of the ground level or supervisor or our regional managers who can support these teams. At this point in time, from our leadership team, Mary has been taking the lead. This could transfer to the future director. And with these 3 projects, we are, with the financing that we have in this year, looking at some consulting to help facilitate, lead that process. I have done that in other organizations, having somebody to help facilitate, an objective party to facilitate. It is a reasonable cost, and I think it will really help to coordinate and move forward the work of the teams.
So when it says 4 staff team members, is it this, you're going to identify different staff teams for each one of these initiatives?
Yes. Yes.
So that's a lot of staff. Okay.
Yeah.
So just if it could be clear who's responsible for what, so I can get a sense of accountability and where the buck stops.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Brenda or anyone else? Brenda, before I move the motion, I just want to echo some of the sentiments you expressed. I mean, this was a very, very, you describe it as dense, very complicated, very important agenda, lots of items, lots of discussions, lots of heavy lifting as well. So thank you and the committee as well for navigating all the complexities. And of course, our staff who did a really, really good job in supporting us as we try to get through the agenda. So thanks, thanks again. I'll move to, I'll read the resolution and then I'll look for a seconder and, mover and a seconder. Be it resolved that the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation proceeds with 3 quality improvement projects: safety and security, pest management, staff and tenant relations, and that the governance of these projects includes corporate co-sponsors, CEO, and a tenant board director, a project committee for each project, which includes a project sponsor from TSHC leadership team, 4 tenant leaders, 4 staff members, 2 TSHC team members, except staff and tenant relations, subject matter experts to be engaged as needed. Communications and other TSHC staff support to be available as required. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
So moved, Carrie.
Okay, moved by Carrie, seconded by Jim. All in favor? That is approved. Okay, we'll move on now to, is there any, Wendy, item number 16, communications and engagement report.
Yes, I just want to be cognizant of time, so I will be brief on my update. So on communications, we have our tenant newsletter, which is going to the printers at the end of this week or the very first of next week. So it should be in tenants' hands in the next within the next 2 weeks. We've started a monthly community letter that is basically like a corporate update for tenants. And so we'll be releasing that at the beginning of each month, and it will be posted online and available to be printed through our staff. And there will be a poster up with a link to where they can also find it. And we'll be sending it out to all of the tenant leaders as well. Via email as well, so they're aware of that. And doing that kind of involvement with tenant leaders in those communications as they go out is part of our plan moving forward. We haven't done it as often as we'd like, and we are planning on increasing that moving forward. We have been doing, since the middle of June, we've been doing weekly staff bulletins for our staff, and we have a town hall coming up in mid-October. And Tom has been making wonderful videos, and thank you to Matt for helping with those videos for both staff and tenants. So they've been publicly posted for the tenant ones on our website, and then on our intranet for staff as well. We are reviewing our bulletin board process to sort of, we've got partway, and it hasn't got to the finish line for being a really good process. So we are working on finalizing that, and we have new resources to be able to achieve that. So on engagement, as it's been mentioned before here, and I think comes up in the next item where we list future plans, there's a lot going on. So just some things that weren't in some of the projects that were already mentioned. We are going to be bringing in a third party to support the consultations around the engagement model, and to have them come up with a final framework, like when we can just take and apply and start our official engagement model for our tenants. So we're looking at that right now. We're also looking at bringing in a community partner to support the design of consultations on the policies, with use of space and tenant action funds being the priority. And looking at through the listening tour and other places, gathering more information on our current tenant communications modes to see what's working and what's not working, what do we still need to improve, and what are the gaps. And of course, we'll be also supporting the quality improvement project recruitment of tenants. So those are the main pieces. And we've also started an email pilot with our tenant reps. We had one run through already. We had to take pieces back to the drawing board to simplify it further, but we expect that to be continuing in the next couple of weeks. So we'll keep you updated on that as well. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. And I think the newsletter will be a useful tool to provide the kind of feedback based on what we've heard today as well. So thanks for being proactive in that regard. Any questions for Wendy on the communications update? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed. I don't think there is any outstanding item on the corporate governance and HR committee report. We got a detailed report from staff earlier on that particular item on the agenda. I don't know, Tom, is there anything that we're missing that requires board information or approval? Didn't think so.
Through the Fareed, is this around the governance work plan?
Yeah. No, it's a corporate governance and HR report, the committee report. I thought we addressed the issues in the session that preceded the open session. Right. So we'll move on. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
I'm just going to say, I don't think there are any outstanding items. Those items were dealt with in camera, and we had the resolution addressed in the open session.
Gotcha. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, Lawrence, anything on item number 18?
Yes, I would like to provide a brief verbal report.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The Audit, Finance and Risk Committee met on 20th September to review the financial health of this corporation. Vince, the current interim finance lead, presented the financial statements as of 31st July 2022. The committee reviewed the statement of operations and the statement of financial position. The committee asked for some additional information and offered a few suggestions for improved and better formats and templates for the financial information. Two other statements were presented to the committee: cash flow projection and budget forecast. Vince informed that there is a possibility of a cash shortfall around December this year, and the corporation is seeking additional funds from the city to cover it. A letter of guarantee to a bank from the city for a credit line to TSHC will be asked for. Vince hopes to provide the updated numbers in the suggested new formats by November 17th, when this committee will be meeting next. Vince also updated the committee on the status of the budget preparation process. Vince appraised the committee of some of the challenges faced by his team, as they depend on TSHC for most of the financial information, and that TSHC is having its own challenges due to the departure of some key finance staff recently. That's the end of my report. If members have any questions, may I suggest we wait till Vince presents his financial statements next?
Thanks, Lawrence. Vince, over to you.
You're on mute, Vince.
Thank you very much, Chair. Today I'm going to present to you the financial statement for Toronto Senior Housing Corporations as of July 31st of 2022. In the attachment number 1, you'll see that through July 31st of 2022, TSHC has incurred operating expenses of $8.543 million. Revenue amounted to about $8.578 million, being composed of $2.355 million coming from the City of Toronto and also $6.188 million coming from TSHC for TSHC's rental units. This included essentially all the revenue, less expense estimate per the transition agreement, and also $35,000 of that included interest income earned on the bank balances. Expenses incurred were for staff compensation, TSHC lead consultants, and other third-party vendors. The City of Toronto revenue grant recognized at $2.355 million from a budget of $3.5 million, with a positive variance year-to-date of $1.229 million. The positive variance is a result of lower than expected legal and professional services due to the delay in the lease agreement, lower payroll and benefits costs, and along with the reduction in the software licenses, travel, conference, and other non-payroll related expenses. If I take you to the next statement, which is attachment number 2, on the statement of financial position itself, in terms of cash, we have about $7.4 million in the bank as of the end of July. We've also got some HST recoverable amount, including accounts receivable, accounts payable, and also net assets about $36,000 overall. In terms of the overall accounts payable balance comprised of July activity that has been processed through the bank in August, and that included payroll, pension and benefits, HST payable, and also interim staff, all of that totaling about roughly close to $2 million overall. So that is the sort of the report for the financial statement for as of the end of July. I just wanted to also take a brief time just to give you an update in terms of some of the financial activities and financial matters as well. We have received and viewed the June of 2022 and quarter 2 TSHC reconciliation. And right now we're working with TSHC to go through the fine details of those figures and hope to have a more updated quarter 3, which will be ending in September. And we will have more updated information by the end of October. And on a matter of HST, we've been given some information and some notices that McKinney Cooper, our HST consultant, has confirmed the appointment of a CRA representative to the account. The CRA has confirmed all documentations have been received and they're currently under review. So we're anticipating and hoping that the defined municipality status will probably be granted and successfully achieved by the end of the year at the very latest. Some few other updates as well in terms of transactions. We've started to transact the financials through the Yardi Home system at this point, and so we've started to use that in June, and so we're heavily using that system moving forward. Insurance renewal. Insurance is coming up for renewal, and that will be effective starting on November 1st of 2022, and that will lead up to into November 1st of 2023. And the expected premium at this point is it's going to be expected increase between 10 to 15%. The good news is we're expecting to see on the lower end of that increase, so probably most likely be 10% or even lower than that. So we will definitely update that information on the next board meeting. Banking matters. The board chair has been added onto the RBC Express form, and also we've removed a few staff that are no longer with the organization, and we've also added some additional administrators onto the account. There is still one outstanding matters at this point in terms of employee liabilities and the post-retirement liabilities, and we're working with TSHC to finalize that piece there. And that concludes my report for Toronto Senior Housing on behalf of the board.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks, Lawrence. Are there any questions for Vince or Lawrence? Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you for it. And Vince, you mentioned that there have been fewer expenses for us, fewer legal expenses and consulting because of some delays. Does that mean we might have those additional expenses in next year's budget, or some of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. The lease agreements right now is I think for Tom that has brought up earlier in the conversation, the earliest schedule was that we were going to go live on January 1st. That will not happen, and so by having that delayed, certainly it has pushed that. Right now we're working on the 2023 budget. Certainly some of that expense will be in there, but I don't anticipate there'll be a full amount captured. So that explains a bit of on the legal piece of it, which right now we're being postponed due to the working arrangement with TSHC on that, and then certainly Tom can add further to that as well. Tom,
No, that's, I think, no, Vince, you covered that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Brenda?
Yeah, questions and queries and concerns about the second quarter reconciliation and the outstanding matter. Are these things to be concerned about in terms of our relationship with TSHC? I mean, I'm trying to read between the lines here, but it seems to be entries appear to be missing or not accurate. Can you provide more explanation of that? And on the outstanding matter, the post-retirement benefits, are we expected to pay for this, or is this not supposed to be Toronto Community Housing responsibility? So if you could explain those two matters, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so certainly on the reconciliation piece, it has been slow and challenging in getting the report directly from TSHC. We're working very closely with them to get this more up to date in terms of more current information. Also, bear in mind that the first report only included 1 month of operation.
Sure.
And so they're still working through their kinks and working through their understaffed situation, because right now they are shortly staffed. We have some people that have been moved over from TSHC over to TSHC, but on top of it, they're missing some few senior staff as well. So that certainly had some challenges, but we are working with them to ensure that moving forward for the next quarter result, that they will be more timely, and we've expressed that very adamantly with them to ensure that get the report more timely moving forward. With respect to the $1.3 million in terms of post-retirement liabilities, that is certainly will be that is the liability that TSHC owes to TSHC, and so we're in discussion with them to transfer that liability over. But on top of it, we're looking to get the cash to be transferred, and so the situation right now is that they're finalizing that piece with the city. Unfortunately, they don't get the full amount directly from the city, and so their proposal is that they will get some component of or some share of it, and they advance that piece of it to TSHC on a yearly basis. So it could mean that over the next, a number of years, that amount of cash-wise will be fully be transferred. So there might be delay in terms of having the full amount transferred. But are there risks to TSHC? No, because we don't anticipate that all the staff will all of a sudden, retire all at once. So there's no significant risk on that basis there. But we will ensure that we will never be at a short cash position to ensure that we could be run a sufficient level, and we will be closely in contact with TSHC to ensure that moving forward.
So what's
I just want to be one time check, Brenda. Just 1 second. I just want to be cognizant of people's time. So
that's fine.
We're at our end date. If there are burning questions, we can deal with it. If there are questions that you can follow up with staff directly via an email, I think might be more productive. Anything else, Brenda, from your perspective? That
no, I was just concerned about whether there was any issue of intransigence
liability. Yeah, no, those are reasonable questions. Okay, thanks again, Vince. Thanks, Lawrence. Anything else for Vince and Lawrence? And again, Vince, we appreciate all the work you're doing in trying to get the finances streamlined and working with the committee and TSHC. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So we'll move to item number 20, which is the planning for success, June to September accomplishments and planning ahead. Mary, any words of wisdom before we move to a resolution?
No, I think this is really provided for the information of the board, just to bring you up to date on what we did in the last quarter and that we have a plan for this coming quarter. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Mary. And again, it is a demonstration of the amount of work being done by staff over the summer months in particular, and during difficult times as well. So thanks to the entire team for the ongoing work. Any questions for Mary on the accomplishments?
No.
Okay, seeing none, I will then ask that someone move the following. Be it resolved that the report on Q3 accomplishments and Q4 plan activities be received for information.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Seconded.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was Brenda.
And Brenda seconding, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Any objections? Okay, hearing none, that's approved. Secondly, may I ask someone to move the following, be it resolved? Well, I should, before I do that, I should ask if there are any other items of business that anyone wants to address before we conclude or move to adjourn. Brenda, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to raise, and whether it's here or elsewhere, the issue of the frequency of our board and committee meetings. This was not discussed fully at the board. It was announced that we'd be reducing our meetings.
Okay.
I don't think it's appropriate. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I really don't think it's meaningful involvement when we're dealing with 300 pages of documents in a 3-hour period. And I don't want to see that repeated again. So as a board member, I want to find some way to resolve this. I do think we need to meet monthly, and because we're still so new, and we are a small board too. I mean, I don't want to overburden people, but on the other hand, if you got 2-month gaps, you're then even more burdened because you're doing catch up all the time. So I'd like to have that discussed openly, and some change made to that assumption that we were just going to reduce. I wasn't even in support of reducing meetings during the summer. So I really think it should be more openly discussed and decided upon collectively. And I'd like to put that on the definite decision-making path.
Okay.
To change that.
All right, we can have that. I know Mary and Tom have been working on governance. So maybe Tom and Mary can ask you to put some ideas and thoughts together, sort of keep on the same track that the work you're doing, and perhaps we can have a more fulsome conversation at the next meeting on this particular issue.
I think it might have been linked to the fact that our compensation system meant that we are no longer paid for the rest of the year for our meeting attendance because we reached our targets, our budget limit. Which is unfortunate. But on the other hand, I think there's work that needs to be done and review that needs to be done and questions. And I don't feel I'm being an effective board member if I can't go, plow through the materials and ask proper questions and accountability and transparency. So
thanks.
I don't want to be a rubber stamp board.
Yeah. No, appreciate it, Brenda. Points well taken. Is there any other item any director wishes to raise at this time? Sorry, Linda, I saw your hand up. Okay. All right, you're good? All right, if not, I think we had a very productive discussion. My apologies for trying to move us along here, but I think it was a good discussion. I think we had an opportunity to canvass the issues in a fulsome way. And I want to thank you for your cooperation, and I hope I conduct myself in a way that meets with your expectations. But if not, you can send me an email. Once again, thanks. And Tom, thanks to you and Mary and all the other staff, Grant and Joseph and Wendy, and too many to mention. I mean, we appreciate all the work you folks do in between meetings, and also the work you do to support us in these conversations.
Absolutely.
Here. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Carrie.
thanks, Gary. Thank you. All in favor? All right, thanks, folks. Enjoy the rest of the day and the week, and hopefully we can spend some time tomorrow to reflect on truth and reconciliation. Take care.
Take care.
I may show up, Brenda.
And thanks for mentioning the reconciliation day tomorrow.